Hey everybody, welcome to Gimme A Song. My name is Jeff Phipps. I invite my friends to come on. I ask them to give me a song, and then I give them a song maybe connected to what they did, maybe not. A couple of things, some housekeeping things. After Meredith, I've already introduced, she'll introduce herself in a second. Once she does, basically, please pause the show. Go listen to the songs. I can't afford to play the songs on the podcast yet. Maybe one day, but when we do that, you'll know. But in the meantime, you'll hear a sound my editor puts in, and then you can pause the show, go listen to the songs, come back. Otherwise, the conversation doesn't make as much sense. And so with all that said, let's introduce our guest. So if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, this one?
That's
that
your
one.
camera.
Oh,
That's your
okay.
camera. This is
Okay,
our
sorry.
camera. This is the whole group camera. This is my camera.
All right, I'm
you
glad
go.
we're clear. I was looking at yours.
Yeah, you can. They're all of ours.
All of ours.
Yeah,
our collective cameras.
The societal cameras, yes.
Societal cameras. I'm Meredith Hopping. I am a stand-up comic based here in St. Louis, and I'm very excited to be on Gimme A Song.
Do you have a preference to comedian or comedian? Are you one of those people? Like the female
Just
version of comedian?
I forget that's even a
I guess that kind of
thing.
Answers it, right?
Yeah, so
because if you
comedian.
don't, comic. I'll say comic more than comedian.
I say comic more than comedian, too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What has been your biggest, what do you think that your biggest accomplishment has been as a comic? What are you most proud of, I guess?
I mean, I'm very proud of Futures Female.
Yeah,
it's a show
well, tell us about that.
I produce and host at the Heavy Anchor, which is an amazing venue for local comedy and music. And 5+ years ago, I realized that there just weren't spaces for female comedians, and no matter what, it just wasn't happening. And there's like, if there's a pie, men get all but one piece, right? And when it comes to getting booked, at least in St. Louis, it seems like. And so then there's like one piece of pie for all the women. And I was just like, okay, I need to make a choice. I can either whine about this and, can I say bitch?
You sort of want.
Okay.
I have the setting on explicit.
Oh, so people know. Yeah. So I can either bitch about this or I can do something about it. And at the same time, Josh and Jody Timbrook, who are the owners of Heavy Anchor, were thinking that it would be great to do something like that. And so we came together, and it just has really become my baby. And I love that it's gotten to a point where in St. Louis, I can't even book a local female identifying comedian twice in 1 year, because we have so many that I want to get on the show. And then also I've got traveling comics that are always asking if they can get on as well, because it's just a really unique thing in that we consistently have sold out audiences. And so it is a direct, direct negation. Is negation a word?
Yeah, negation is a word.
All right. It's a direct negation of this idea that women aren't funny, right? Yeah. And that no one wants to hear women make jokes. Not all women are funny. I'm not gonna I'm not that type of feminist that's like, all women are great at everything. It's not true.
Yeah.
However, it's been a really empowering thing, and I'm actually, once this airs, I will have done my last one. So I am letting it go. Yeah.
Huh.
I initially let it go because I was in a relationship that was long distance, and I wanted to be able to travel there more, and that actually ended. And I was like, oh, this sucks. And then at the same time, I was like, it's okay sometimes to just like let something be and not burn it out and like run it into the ground. And I'm already booked out of state for that first weekend in 2025 that it would have been. Yeah. So it very much the universe, God, whatever you want to say, showing me like, it's okay to evolve and leave something, even if it is going great. So.
Yeah. I've been running a show, not to try and piggyback or anything like that, at a small Mexican restaurant with a unique stage, very unique place. But Just haven't been moving tickets like I want to, and it's like I'm on the fence about it. And it's like I have a show December 7th. If this one airs around then, I don't know. It might have already been over by the time this airs. And it would be like, okay, I'm good if it doesn't go. But how many comics do you think you've had on stage? Do you have like a rough estimate? You do like 10. You do like what 7 or 8 a show, right?
Yeah.
5 years, once a month, right? So that'd be like about 60 shows.
Yeah.
So
a lot.
400 some. I mean, you've had a lot of repeats. So.
I have had a lot of repeats because.
So at least like, but let's say ballpark estimate, maybe 300. Have you realized?
I haven't thought about that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, and always like, yes, repeats. Like every year I have like, and I had to the past couple years just do a Google Doc that was like, hey, there are so many female identifying comedians.
Yeah.
I'm not reaching out unless you let me know you actually want to do this because that makes my job easier. So had to actually make a Google Doc and just be like, fill it out if you want to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you don't want to do it because I can't go. It got to a point where I couldn't go like reaching out to people with that.
There was a comic, and I don't name names on the show.
Why not?
No, this is not a thing. And it is a male comic, and they were, the question was, why...
I've heard this story before.
I bet you have. Why can't Meredith put a guest spot on for male comics? And it was just striking to me. It's like, is this what we want? Is this really what we want?
Yeah.
Like, do you need this?
The rest of the pie is yours. Let us have our one piece.
And if you're not familiar with the guest spot, I'll just quickly tell you. So a lot of people assume that every comic gets paid on every show. And if you're hosting and you're running the show, you could run the show at a loss, and you might actually not get paid at all. And I've done that the last couple times, which is why I'm on the fence about continuing my show. Well, actually, I've only won one at a loss. I broke even on one.
Nice.
Run one at a loss, and I'm like, I don't want to do this again. Like, it hurts. This is out of pocket, and I'm already paying for things, like a podcast.
Right.
So, you run, but you not everybody you see at a club. A guest spot is like it's like an audition, basically. And you're asking for an audition on a female show as a male comic. I just kind of was like, do you really need this? Like, I was trying to be polite about it, but at the same time, it's like, no, just stop.
Right. Well, and also it's like, okay, so you see, because that's not the only male comic that said that, right? Like, I've gotten grief, which is wild to me, from male comics who are upset because they're like, but you always sell them out, and why can't we? And I'm like, sell out your own show, like figure it out, and or maybe see like, oh, would our shows do better if we booked more women?
Maybe.
Like, there's also that. But yeah, it is so funny to me that there can't be like this one space, right? That's just for
weird.
Female identifying people.
It's a little weird. It's a bit much. It's like, come on. I've always made a point. I'm not some kind of like, I'm not sexist. Let's just start there. We'll
you
work
heard
down.
it here first, folks.
If I had to say it,
Phipps is not sexist.
They say if you have to say things like that, then maybe there's something to that.
Like you've got a black friend too,
right?
Right?
Yeah, I do actually.
Only because he's a comic.
Yeah. No, actually not. Actually, one of my best friends happens to be black. That's how I like to say it. Just say it like that. But he's going to be on the show. He's actually the band director at Kirkwood.
Nice.
And we met at Central, which is where I taught.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being, let's circle back to what I was getting at. I always made a point of having at least one female on the show, if I could. Like it's. But then you're talking about time, finding women who have 20 minutes, because I like to give 20 minutes. I give longer sets for people. Smaller show, longer sets for people in St. Louis. It's really what the goal was to get me, acclimated to hosting and running a show, and then but finding women specifically who had 20, and men who have 20 minutes. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
They'll tell you they have 20 minutes.
They will.
And then you'll watch them just, go down with the ship. And it's like, I could walk up and get you now and save you, but I booked you. I'm paying you for 20 minutes, and you're going to give me 20
minutes.
You're going to give me 20 minutes, and you're going to find out whether you have it. But anyway, I've always tried to be an ally to women by having them on the show. I just think it's like something. I think it's important.
And it doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah,
By
I'm not trying
female
to,
comics.
But I'm not trying to be that person. I just wanted to make sure that I had representation.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're here on Give Me a Song. You've seen the show before. Do you need to hear the story on how this happened?
Does the audience need to?
I don't know, to be honest, because some people are pretty consistent listeners who do hear the story, because I offer to tell the story to every comic every single time, or every person. Eventually, I do have a musician lined up. I have other people lined up. Fun. So I'm going to be talking to more people soon. But your call right now, do you need to hear the story on how the podcast started?
No.
Perfect. Well, then
put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay. So you gave me a song.
I did.
I asked people to give me songs. If you could tell everyone what was the song that you gave me.
I gave you John Wayne Gacy Jr. by Sufjan Stevens from the album Illinois.
Okay, how did you find this song? Let's start there.
I found this song because, and I meant to look up the exact date. It was a year after the album came out. My brother got the CD. That's how old I am. The CD for my ex-husband and I as part of our Christmas present. And it was, so we're talking, it had to have been like 2007, maybe 2008. But so we just listened to it nonstop in the car, because that was when no smartphones, no, not even an iPod, I don't think yet. And it was just an amazing album, especially I'm from Central Illinois.
Okay. Where are you from in
Born and
Central
raised.
Illinois?
So my dad was a United Methodist pastor, and they move their pastors like every 5 years on average. Mm-hmm. So I was born in Danville, Illinois, and then we moved to Wellington, Illinois, which no one would have any idea where that was, and then to Decatur, Illinois.
Yeah.
And then to Arthur, Illinois, which is an Amish community, and then to Bloomington Normal.
Okay.
And I got to do 6th grade through graduating high school in Bloomington, which was a really big deal to be able to go that long in one place.
Well, that's pretty cool. I grew up in Muscuda.
Yeah.
So another small town Illinois person. I was wondering if there was a connection there with the album, because I don't know. I mean, we've known each other for a few years now, but I didn't know you. I just knew you lived in St. Louis.
Right. So. No, and I've lived in St. Louis for 12 years now. So
yeah. And now I live 8 miles east of where I grew up. So I've made a long distance. I've traveled so far. I did do a stint in the military. I was in California at one point, but anyway, no point. No,
he's gotten out. He's gotten out a little bit,
not much. I would love to tell you that, let me start out describing it this way. This is a beautiful song that I've listened to exactly 4 times.
Yeah.
And and when this episode's recorded and it's out there, I can assure you I will never listen to it again. Yeah. What about this song specifically, because like I said, I ask people to send me a song. I don't give you any guidance.
Right.
I don't give
and you didn't even necessarily say your favorite song.
No, I just said something that has a meaning to you. That's the one. So if people don't know, because when I reach out to people and I describe the podcast to them, I say, hey, I want to talk to you about a song, something that means something to you, and how the conversation comes with the meaning. Mm-hmm. The song is called John Wayne Gacy. It is literally about John Wayne Gacy, who is a notorious serial killer who, according to this, killed 27 people. But they don't believe that he killed 27 people, correct? Don't they believe he killed far more than that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you have this album, you listen to it, and you're like, this is it. I really want, the second I heard it, I want to know why.
So the minute we heard this on the album, I was bawling. Mm-hmm. And it is listen to it at least once. Everyone should listen to it.
Yeah, you should absolutely listen to it. This conversation will not make as much sense until you hear the song.
No.
Seriously.
Because otherwise it just and it also kind of makes me look like a basic bitch in that now every white woman is obsessed with true crime, right? And this was my favorite song over 15 years ago, maybe. So
is it still your favorite song?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
like it's still, if someone asks, I say this is my favorite song. Because that's one of my favorite things when meeting someone. I'm just like, favorite this, favorite that. Like, and they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, there's a gun to your head. What's your favorite thing? Because at that point, you can tend to pick what your favorite is.
Unless it's a it's got to be like a real gun, though. Like a metaphorical thing. Like, really, people are still going to be
I can be pretty convincing with my metaphors. When I heard it, and I'm the daughter, and ex-wife of pastors, right? Yeah. So, like, Christianity has been, like, a part of my DNA for forever. And there are still a lot of things about Christianity that I still hold true and really believe in and really appreciate. And so in listening to this, I was like, this is one of the most Christian songs I've ever heard.
All right, you're going to have to explain that to me.
My mom felt the same way. She was very disturbed by this being my favorite song. So for me, one of the most important tenets of Christianity is that I am no better than anyone else.
Correct.
And that Christ is the thing that like equalizes it, right?
Yeah.
And so the very last line or very last stanza, and in my best behavior, I'm really just like him.
Yeah.
Look underneath the floorboards at the things which I have hid. And I was just like, that's like that idea of realizing like I am no better in the capability and capacity of what I could do. That is, I don't know if you want to say evil, if you want to say.
Do you believe in evil?
I struggle. Like I'm on a very. I don't like to say deconstruction. Like that's a big word right now especially with people my age who grew up and were so inundated with American evangelical Christianity, which is its own awful thing.
I was raised Catholic, so we have our own issues.
Yes,
but those are deep rooted all the way tracing back to Italy.
I honestly I struggle because I appreciate that there's at least like history to yours. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like
there is, but you're just living in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So it's not like history to you; it's like current events. So it's a little bit different.
But there is something there's something so beautiful about liturgy.
Yeah.
Which that's going to be a word that people may not know what it means. But it's like when you go to church and the entire congregation or crowd. I'm really bad at using like religious terminology.
This is our conversation about this
and we
song.
Can leave little show notes.
We can.
And we can leave a glossary.
I'm probably not going to have my editor do an entire glossary.
I will make a glossary.
Okay.
I like things being user
friendly.
If
you give me a link to a glossary, I will gladly link it on the show.
So where there's like call and response, where the priest or pastor or liturgist says something and the congregation responds saying things, and they're just prayers and creeds that have been said for thousands of years. And so there's something very, very beautiful to me in that. But American evangelical Christianity kind of wanted to throw out the baby with the bathwater with all of that, right? Like anything old was bad.
Yeah.
And that's just not.
So just so that we're for the record, so I understand a little bit.
Yeah.
You went to more of like the hip youth pastor kind of church, or
I was United Methodist.
Okay.
And it's
but that's like the modern spin kind of thing.
It depended. Like there were churches that were very like high liturgy where it was only hymns and only organ.
More traditional.
And yes, traditional versus contemporary. which
Which
are
is the
words
youth
that
pastor wearing the $300
yes,
Air
my
Jordans.
ex-husband he once got a job at a church when he was in seminary because the teenagers at the church liked that he wore checkered Vans.
Okay.
Like, it was between him and someone else, and they were like, well, the kids like his shoes.
He's got his shoes. I have a pair
Yeah.
of checkered Vans,
Yeah.
which has gotten me no jobs. Okay. I could buy that. What's funny is that is the specific verse on why I don't like this song.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was it. That was the
Yeah.
indicator. So how it worked is I was driving,
Yeah.
and kids don't do this, and your notification went off, and you're like, "Here's the song."
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did was like, "Okay, I'm gonna listen to the song,"
Right.
and I'm not gonna. I of course pulled over, and loaded up the song that way. I definitely didn't do it while I was driving.
You just have a really fancy car.
Yeah, I do.
does
I
it
do have
all.
all that. Actually, I could have did it that way. I didn't. Actually, I might have. Honestly, I might have said, "Hey, play
You
this."
did.
Yes, of course I did. What I didn't do is grab my phone and immediately start typing.
No.
That didn't happen.
No.
Absolutely not. I listened to the song and I was like, okay, this is beautiful. And then I
Yeah.
was like, it's called John Wayne Gacy. And I'm like, I bet it's going to be about John Wayne Gacy. And I was right.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, okay, 27. And I was like, okay, yeah, I knew that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, white women don't have the market cornered on serial killers. You know, other people know.
Enjoy it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say enjoy it,
Should
but
you
it's
say you enjoy it?
it's fascinating. Like, honestly, it's like you want to understand. I think everybody wants to understand serial killers because you just don't. Here's the thing. I don't believe I have it in me. Okay. And then the last verse, he's like, "Oh, I'm just like him," and I'm like, "No, because you said you don't know if you believe in evil. I can assure you, I
Yeah.
believe in evil. I believe in good. I believe in evil.
Yeah.
I don't believe." And this is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is I don't believe in the humanization of evil.
Okay.
So I believe like Lucifer is a person who hates God and was just like, you know what, I'm going to turn people against you. I
Yeah.
believe in evil for the sake of evil. I
Okay.
think some people just have a streak in them.
Uh-huh.
Whatever, you can call it a chemical imbalance. You can justify, people want to justify that. Like they want to defend it.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, they were abused as a kid or they were that or they were
Yeah.
this. Look, I'm not going to get into my background. I don't
Yeah.
know what you know or don't know. And some people kind of have some ideas. Didn't have the best childhood.
Yeah.
Okay? Just really didn't. And I'm not evil.
No.
I'm not remotely evil.
No.
I do have a mean, I can have a mean streak.
Well, you're
and-
human.
Right, yeah. But I mean, I'm just evil for the sake of evil. I don't have it in me. I think killing 27 kids, that's evil for the sake of evil. I'm not going to spin that off in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be like, no. If this had broke this way, he wouldn't have done it. Like I don't believe. Like Jeffrey Dahmer is another one that
Yeah.
people unnecessarily fantasize about. He just liked killing people, and he liked, and he's like, well, I got a corpse here, and I'm hungry, and it's just let's kill two birds with one stone kind of
Yeah.
thing. One stone. I hate puns.
These are cranberries, not.
Yeah, yes, no, but
organs.
anyway, I believe in evil, and so like when he gets down to the bottom, and he's like, "In my basic, I'm really just like him," and it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're writing a beautiful song, like
Yeah.
unless you are killing people on the
Right.
side, and which would be just.
Well, and I think too, it begs the question, like, what is, like, you have to decide what is evil, right? Like, in Christianity, we are taught that, like, even thinking about cheating on your wife, right?
But
is
that's
just
not
as
evil.
bad.
That's just immoral.
Well, yes. But I think that what I like is that it does away with this ranking of, I guess, sin.
Yeah,
I
you
guess,
call it sin.
yeah.
I
we
mean,
can
if
call it sin.
if you're looking at it from a moral
yes, and this is where I was when I came to this song.
Okay. Which makes sense. I mean, if you genuinely believe in Christianity and you're genuinely like, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe he died
Yeah.
from our sins. He was resurrected in 3 days, which is the hardest thing to buy, by the way. Easter is like, if you can buy Easter, the rest of it is perfect. Makes perfect sense. But you buy into this, and all sin is equal in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
People forget that quite frequently, and then they
Very.
want to go on these weird, like, sex, where it's like, oh, you're gay. Well, no,
Yeah.
you're more evil than the serial killer who killed 27 people. Like, I believe that there is a scale.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not that Christian so much as like gay isn't on the top 10 list of bad things.
No.
Like it's just
No.
it's easily forgivable too on top of that.
Yeah.
You know, I think when you tell people they can't have sex intended for God, and then they do things they're not supposed to do, talking about the Christian,
Yeah.
the Catholic Church specifically.
Yeah.
And I think people can read the between the lines there. I don't have to spell out. We're not supposed to touch the altar boys. I guess I'll just spell it out. But you're not supposed to touch the altar boys. That was that. Then it has to become a bigger problem because we have to make it a bigger problem so that the altar boys aren't getting touched.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of
I
that.
will say there is scripture that lends itself to.
Yeah, of course.
If you lead a child astray,
Yeah.
it would be better that you be drowned.
Right. Well, there's a lot
that.
of. I love the Old Testament. The Old Testament's like, what
Well,
is
that
this?
was Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
well,
sure.
Probably, but it's just the the punishment is just like, look, you just don't have to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just sort you somewhere else. But you I don't know, like you just have like this sliding scale. I think there's a sliding scale of evil, and I think we kind of like some people use like the well, everything's equal to normalize some of these things. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you're just a serial killer. It's like no.
For
I'm not saying you
sure.
personally. I'm just saying like. A verse like that was just like no. Like in
Yeah.
my head, I was just like nope. I'm drawing the line here. This is the line. Like I just couldn't imagine.
It doesn't matter how pretty and breathy his voice is.
No, it doesn't. And I read that. So there's a Wikipedia on this song specifically,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of like, and that was his justification. He was kind of like, well, it's like we all have this in it, and it's like no, I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that. I would assume
Yeah.
you don't.
I don't think I do.
I don't think I do.
I mean, but here's the thing. So and it also lends to itself, like, I am very, very passionately against the death penalty.
Okay.
Passionately. And that does come from my Christian upbringing, in that, like, there is never a moment that anyone is too far gone for redemption would be the word from,
that's the
from
right
that
word.
time.
Yeah.
However, like in more not religious terms, just like turning around and making a different choice.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love that about Christianity. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beautiful things. And I guess that's the concept of grace, right?
Yeah. We all try
And
to
so,
show people grace.
yes. And so I think that too, it's like it's such a descriptive song too, in its humanization of John Wayne Gacy Jr. in that, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to think about him on the swing set.
Right.
Like, I don't want to think that he had a mom who did laundry.
Yeah.
Like, we like to just put people in these boxes of, like, you're this, you're that, and thus, and I, especially growing up in the church, I had to work a lot on getting rid of my black and white thinking of, like, this is what is good, this is what is bad, and there's no in between.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the, like, no, it's not, like, most people aren't going to think it's a beautiful thing to humanize a serial killer, right?
No.
And yet for me, because of my, like, I will always have faith that humanity and individuals can at some point make the right choice. And, like, that's my eternal optimism that bites me in the ass a lot. Like, it bites me in the ass a lot, but I have to believe that.
Did you get the Ancestry.com thing? Have you done that?
No, not full on. Like, my mom was really big into genealogy.
Right. But no, like the DNA test.
No.
Okay,
no.
so famously, as people who have seen me perform, famously, it's wrecked my life.
Yeah.
Because, my dad's not my dad. And it's like a big part of my set and talking
Right.
about it. They have a characteristics, though. It's like, it's up to 80. One
Yeah.
of them that apparently I'm not is optimistic.
Really?
It's a genetic trait, according to Ancestry.com. So that explains. I don't
The
believe
difference in
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
don't. I believe some people are beyond redemption. I
Okay.
think you make it. I think 27's right around that number personally. 5 is probably like and it depends. It really it really depends on who and what you're killing. Like to be
If it's Nazis, you're good.
5 Nazis you can check that. If it's 27 Nazis, let's be honest. Like if you were in World War II,
I'd be pretty proud of
Yeah,
killing
like-
20. I just said that
You
on
did.
camera.
and it's okay. We can edit it out if you want it out. I don't.
It's fine. It's
Okay.
real.
It's real. It's true.
Even not. No. Oh gosh, I can't.
We learned so much about ourselves here at Give Me a Song.
Woo!
Oh man. Anyway, let's talk about murder. Let's switch gears. All
I
right.
would like to have a strong conversation with Nazis
Yeah,
before
I don't think
kill
so.
them.
No, you don't need to. Really, they got roped. Like a lot of those people got roped into it.
Exactly. That's
Right.
what's so
It's so weird about it.
so
Okay.
overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. You can be okay. Can we transition?
We're gonna need to transition away
Okay.
from Nazis.
All right, let's transition away from Nazis. I gave you a song. So the point of this show is it's not call me conceited, call me vain, call me whatever you'd like, but it's like okay, I want to hear about your song. But if I'm gonna hear about your song, I'm gonna
Right.
give you a song to listen to. We're not just gonna. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be just about you.
No.
I mean I've
That's
gotta-
important.
It is important. Let's talk about Let's talk about a song that does have a murder in it, or at least a killing. Would you call it a murder?
Did you pick this after?
Everything song gets picked after.
Oh, okay.
So basically-
you do
so-
pick it in response.
It's always in response. So what
Okay.
I do is usually I listen to, yours was exactly twice. And
You're
then,
like, wait a minute, is this
and then,
really what this is
then
about?
I played it once more for Becky and I said, you got to hear the song that Meredith sent me. And then on the way here, so it was fresh in my head.
Yeah.
So those were the 4 times. I can tell you
Yeah.
exactly the 4 songs. And then, there's a story in your song about, there's a clear line of story. And that's
sure.
the first thing I tied myself to. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, let's talk about a song about a story. And so
Yeah.
the song I gave you was
Carolina Drama
By
the Raconteurs.
by the Raconteurs. The Jack White famous. I'm wearing my Jack White hoodie.
Oh, nice.
To be here for the
I'm not
for the show.
I'm a fan of who he is. Like
Uh-huh.
I appreciate what he does, but I'm not I don't have a Jack White hoodie,
Yeah.
right? One of my favorite things is though my friend from high school, Grace, she and her husband moved to Nashville, and he was a professor at one of the colleges. I can't remember which one, and she was working at Starbucks in Nashville. And a guy came through the drive-thru, and she was like, "Can I get your name?" Like back in the day where they would like write the name, and he was like Jack White, and she was like, "That's funny," and it was absolutely Jack White.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he relocated to Nashville. Around like 2007, 2008, and he's been there ever.
Yeah.
Well, he still has he's in Detroit and Nashville. It's like
Right.
both places. But we have met him in Nashville.
so cool.
We were at it. Well, he's got a record store there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
We went to go to see a blues game in Nashville because we're in St. Louis. So
Right.
we went to a blues Nashville game. We were like, we're going to go to Third Man. He was there signing autographs that day.
Aw.
So we met him that day.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
And there's actually some amazing local comedy that happens at
absolutely.
Third Man
Well,
Records.
Yeah, they do. They run a show in the Blue Room.
Yeah.
We caught a show in the Blue Room just recently.
That's so cool.
it was
Courtney
so cool.
Warner is the comic who
Yeah.
runs a lot of those shows, and she's actually been on Futures Female
That's
before.
awesome.
Yeah.
The world ties together.
Yes, it does.
You said so before. I always ask people, had you heard the song?
I had because this album came out when you would still buy albums,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, and you wouldn't just stream them. And so I do remember my ex-husband and we did buy because it was like Jack White's doing a new thing.
Yeah.
Let's
It was
check
like
it out.
he put out the White Stripes, and he's like, "Oh, by the
Yeah.
way, I've got another.
Yeah.
I got a whole nother band
Yeah.
now." And
So
it was just
cool.
yeah, it was cool. He does cool things. I don't know if you caught this. He put out an album a month ago, So people went to Third Man and they were just buying stuff. And they were like, here you go, here's your bag. And there was a record in there.
Oh, that's so cool.
No, nothing on it. It ended up being
so
called
cool.
No Name. There was no track listings, nothing. And they were just like, here you go. And then so people were like, there's a new Jack White album out now.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then like a week later, it was like all official and then it was on Spotify. But like for a week, they were like,
people had these.
well, then he was like, then they were like, go put it on the internet.
Yeah.
To give it out, like let's, like it was this whole thing. Like the weekend was like, everyone's like, oh yeah, new Jack White,
awesome.
And so what are your thoughts? Like, let's start there.
But it's like very Johnny Cash to me. Like very, we're going to sit down and we're going to tell a story.
He literally says that in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that. Like I did not grow up, literally the only music I grew up with was hymns, right, at church.
Did your parents let you listen to pop music?
No,
was that a thing?
I was not allowed to listen to anything other than contemporary Christian music, otherwise known as CCM. So like Amy Grant.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who Amy Grant is. I remember like praying fervently for her when she had her first secular song.
Like, you crossed the line, lady.
Yeah, because it was Baby Baby. I remember it so, and I couldn't have been, I think I was 8. Like, I think I was 8, and I was just like, but Mom, maybe she's talking about her baby. Like, her little baby, and not someone she likes. Because you just you couldn't spin Baby Baby into something about Jesus. Like there was no way to do it. A lot of music you can.
Do you watch
turn
South
it
Park?
into something. I don't know.
There's an episode of South Park. So you know who Eric Cartman is, though, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, there's an episode of South Park where they decide to form a Christian band.
Yeah.
And it's the most offensive Christian band. You've got to watch this. If this is how, like, if this is your new upbringing, and I believe you.
Yeah.
If like this would just be, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Like, I really want you to find it on your own.
Okay.
You're going to love every second of it.
I will love
because
it
is just the most offensive song titles. They, Matt and Trey Parker have a background in like musical comedy, music, and they've written musicals. And just the most offensive thing. You'll love every second of it.
I'm so excited.
It's just, that's your background. That's I've known people like that. I've had friends like, and it was like, oh, you can spend the night, but guess where you're going Sunday? And it's like, oh man, I'm going to church. And it's like, we were practicing Catholics like immediately. We went to church in Lemnon, which is another 8 miles north of Mascoutah. Which was a U.S. Center of Population from 1970 to 1980, which meant that if you took the population of the United States, you could balance it, and Mascoutah would be that town where there's an equal amount. Yeah, that's what it's famous for. We got there, and Father Hartline was like, your mom is married to a Baptist, and she can no longer accept communion. And that was that. Like, and she was like, seriously? And he was like, no, seriously. And then like, I never got confirmed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we stopped going. So I'm not like, I'm like Catholic in name only. Like really, it's like very flexible.
Tradition.
Yeah, but then, I've read the Bible. I've done a lot of deep diving into religions. I'm not trying to find one. I just want to understand them.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
Absolutely.
They're fascinating.
So it's just not funny, absolutely horrifying, really, that you grew up where like, like Amy Grant put out a non-Christian song, and everybody was like, she'll be okay.
Right.
We'll hope that she comes back.
Yeah. Well, and what's so funny is like now as an adult, so I was only like, other girls my age had like Debbie Gibson outfits, and I had an Amy Grant outfit. That I was like, can I wear my Amy Grant outfit today?
Yeah.
It was like the most rockerish thing I had. But as I got older, I found some like loopholes in my parents' system because only contemporary Christian music, but then I would be allowed to stay up if the Moody Blues live at Red Rocks was playing on PBS. I could stay up because my parents were going to stay up to watch that because they loved the Moody Blues.
Which is not
not Christian.
No, not
but a lot of like those ideas and
Yeah.
philosophies.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you wouldn't let me listen to Debbie Gibson, but I got to dance around behind the couch to Nights in White Satin.
Awesome.
Explain it. And then I did. The first time I ever heard Madonna, I was in 3rd grade. I went over to Jacqueline Dick's house after school. I was at a more progressive Christian school at that point called Glad Tidings Christian Academy, and I got so embarrassed the first day I was there. I went in the middle of the year, and these girls came up to me and they were like, "Have you seen Grease?" And I was like bacon grease? Like my dad makes popcorn with bacon grease. Is that what you're saying? And they're like,
delicious.
"You're so funny." And I was like, "Okay." And it was about the movie Grease, which of course I hadn't been allowed to watch that. And so I went over to Jacqueline's house and she played me, what all did she play me? She played me Papa Don't Preach.
Which is
Madonna.
literally that song. Like
Yeah, and then she also played me some Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I, of course, had to confess that this had happened. Like as soon as I got picked up, because I had a very guilty conscience. United Methodist guilt is very similar to Catholic or Jewish guilt. Turns out it's a universal thing. And my dad picked me up and I was like, "Dad, I did listen to some music that was secular." Like this is a 3rd grader saying things like secular.
You shouldn't know that word.
No,
You shouldn't know that word.
reason.
Like people just there's like a list of words like you were talking about like negation earlier. You started like I'm backgrounds in mathematics.
Yeah.
Like I know the word negation because we talk about it a lot. It's like you're negating something.
Yeah.
You're canceling something out. But most people don't know that word is the thing. Like,
No.
You know.
And so I was like, but I realized that I probably should have made her stop. I probably should have made her turn off the songs. But I will say this, Dad, if I ever get pregnant out of wedlock, there's a song I can just play you. And I don't have to tell you. I can play you this song. So isn't that nice? Like that was my justification.
This is awesome.
As a 3rd grader.
I'm so sorry for you.
And so but it like I also remember also in 3rd grade is when the first time I heard swear words.
Yeah.
I had never heard them ever. And my brothers and I were at the park back when you could actually you went to parks by yourself.
Yeah.
And
You could ride your bike.
Long distances by yourself. And all these older boys had covered one of the slides with sand, packed it down.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realize that they had done it. And I went to go down. I was like, well, this will be fun. I'll go down the slide and also move all the sand. And they lost it. And they were saying every word. And so that night I was having my bath and I was like, "Mom, what are these words?" And she told me, and she was like, "We do not say them. We do not say these words." And I would get my mouth washed out with soap if I just talked back, right? To the point that I started licking the Dial soap on purpose so that I could build up a tolerance. And then one day, I don't know if my mom knew, she switched to the liquid.
Oh.
It was awful. It was so bad.
I was so ready.
Yeah.
And then, man.
But so we're on our way to school, and I was like, "Mom, I got to tell you something." And she was like, "What?" And I said, "I just thought that the guy that was on the Huck's gas station sign," which is Huck Finn. I don't know if you know Huck's gas stations. It's a picture of Huck Finn. And I was like, "Mom, I just thought that he looked like an asshole." And she was like, "Meredith, while we don't want to say them, we don't need to tell someone every time we think them."
That's awesome. Oh man.
So yeah, I still struggle with that. I tend to overshare and over confess everything. But yeah, so all that to say, let's circle back now. I didn't grow
Look
up
at you
like
redirecting the show for me. I was gonna do it, and you just took care of it. Like, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm getting better. Like I'm on
Are you on
Wellbutrin
enough?
now.
Are you on enough podcasts, or you're directing?
No,
me to...
I'm a 40-year-old woman who realized I have autism and ADHD, and I've been on Wellbutrin for like 4 weeks, and it's helping.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Speaking of oversharing.
Here we are. That's fine.
But I didn't grow up with. I feel very
Yeah.
cheated that I didn't grow up with like. My dad loved the Stones. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
No,
other
my
than
dad
Moody
listened.
Blues,
My parents.
there
So
was
my parents
nothing.
listened to country.
Okay.
Both kinds, country
Yeah.
and western.
Yeah.
And I hate every minute of
That's
country.
so funny.
So like, but they didn't care what I listened to. So like, I was listening to Kiss in 5th grade, or as a
Yeah.
5-year-old,
Yeah.
not in the
Oh,
5th grade, as a
wow.
5-year-old. I had like NWA tapes by 13.
Oh my god.
They did not care.
That's
So like when
kinda
NWA
awesome.
came out, like they didn't know what I was listening to, but they wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
So a little bit different. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
maybe I wish there was like some kind of filter. Like I could do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
Like we had none of my friends had we had no parental reins whatsoever.
Wow.
Not very, not
That's what
necessarily a
I
good thing.
wanted,
Right.
but-
But you just kind of
Yeah.
need to be in the middle. And I didn't graduate college till I was 30. So there you go. So, there's consequences to these things. So we're telling a story. We're in South Carolina.
Yeah.
There's 2 kids. There's an abusive boyfriend. There's a mom.
It's a lot.
And then the older boy comes home and he's like, why is there a priest here? And it ties in perfectly with your background.
Yeah, it really, really does.
Had you, so you heard it when it first came out. You knew, you were aware of the song. Was it something like stuck with you when you heard it then? Like when you listened to it, so it was like just as fresh pretty much
Yeah,
then.
it really was.
What was your thoughts on it? Like I want to know like how you took this particular story.
Yeah, I love one of the things my ex-husband, his grandma grew up in like the hills of Tennessee. Where like no shoes and all this stuff. And so everyone was musical, every single person. And it was because that's what you did. Like when there was nothing to do, you made music and you sang folk songs. And so I love music like this where it is a story in a song. And also just the like growing up, I guess, in the North.
We both grew up in Illinois. I don't know if I would use the term the North. Like, I mean, we had plumbing, we had electricity. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like there is like, I don't think people know like there is a rock bottom to poor.
Yes,
and this is the people in this song are closer to the rock bottom of poor than like probably you or I were ever close to.
Yes.
And I don't know like. I didn't grow up in the wealthiest house.
No, neither did I. But like one of my biggest struggles was I only had 5 outfits to wear to school, right? That I deemed acceptable to wear to school. And so my biggest struggle was, well, if I don't wear the same one on Friday and Monday, no one will realize that I only have 5 outfits that I wear. Then I thought like, I'm so poor because of that. And then you grow up and you start to become aware of other people's realities and struggles, and it's like
like holes in the shoes and no socks.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of poor.
Exactly.
Like junk house is like very descriptive. This song is so descriptive. Like you could film this tomorrow with this as the script.
with just this.
Yeah.
As the script, and I love that. Like that's one of the things as a comic I actually get critiqued for is like being too wordy and too descriptive because I'm like, but I want everyone to feel exactly what I want them to feel about this. And so I appreciate that. I'm like, give me all the details.
It's time of set, right? Like really, if you get 5 minutes and you're wordy, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But if you get like 20 It's not as bad.
Yeah.
Headliners, you watch headliner sets on YouTube, Netflix, and people like that, and they're just so wordy, and they're just like this. And maybe the punchline hits a little bit bigger, but it's like it's a crowd of people who want to see you.
Yes.
And you can get away with murder. Speaking of murder, they're getting away from murder. And then what do they tell you when you're like coming up? It's like, no, you talk too much. And it's like, because there's a comic that I opened for, and every once in a while, no, we're not on here. And I send him clips every once in a while. I'm like, hey, tell me what you think of this.
Right.
You know? And he's just like, the last time I sent him a clip. It took him a couple days. He probably didn't want to respond at all. You know, he's just like, stop bugging me. And I really haven't bugged him since, but this is like, stop bugging me. Yeah. And it's like, finally, he's like, okay, I watched it. You're too wordy. And I was like, okay. And then I was just like, okay, let's chop it up, you know, and let's write shorter jokes and let's do that. But it's just funny though, like once you get the keys of the kingdom, that's all off the table.
Right. If you want to just shoot like the shit for 15 of your hour, go ahead.
Bill Burr hosted Saturday Night Live, and everybody was waiting to see his monologue.
Yeah.
And it was all words.
Yeah.
There was like, he was trying to get to these points. I don't think he really got there. And I'm not...
I haven't seen the most recent one.
Yeah. It was the one right after the election. So everybody was kind of like eyes on him. What's he going to say?
Right.
And it was kind of like, it was kind of rambly because he, you know, someone like him, it takes time to develop those like killer jokes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he grows them out of like, you know, thin air. I don't believe that. But it was just kind of like it was more wordy than it probably would be if he had more time to really sit there and work on it. But you get the keys to the kingdom, you do whatever you want. It's so kind of funny. And you can tell stories. And you can be descriptive.
Yeah.
Or you can be Jack White and you just write. You can crank out 25 albums. Stephen King is wordy.
Right. Yeah. And it's worked well for him. It's not working for me like it works for Stephen King.
You have The Stand behind us, which I noticed. The first time he put out The Stand, it was like 800 pages. Yeah. And then he became Stephen King. Right. And then it's like, okay, you can put out the unabridged version, which is completely different.
Yeah.
But he had to get the keys to the kingdom. He had to earn it
in order to do what he actually.
And now it's just like, and now he'll crank out like a 200-page novel, and it's like, where was this guy?
Well, he's done it for how many years?
That
is a huge part of it. And I will say, like, I've been doing stand-up for 7 years with a couple of
breaks,
breaks, because life keeps happening even when you're doing stand-up, and. I have gotten to the point where like I can take a joke that can be a 10-minute joke, right? If I want it to be, and condense it to like 2 minutes. Yeah. So that I'm like, this sucks because I don't get to give them everything I want to give them about this joke, but in this setting, in this time allotment, I'm able to edit it. And I could not have done that like in the first few years at all. Cause it's like, well, what do I still remember my second open mic. I didn't really know anything about stand-up. Like I just had decided I was going to do it. And the Funny Bone was close to my house at the time. And I knew I needed 4 minutes. And so then I was like, I'm going to come back again next week. I thought you had to have new material every time. And I saw these guys get up and do the same exact thing they had done the week before. And I was like, but I didn't like practice what I did last week. I only practiced this and it wasn't great. Like my first time was great for stand-up, but
everyone, not everyone. I think most people like they put so much emphasis on that first open mic, so much emphasis, and they always walk away like, "Oh, I had a good set."
Yeah,
you really didn't.
Yeah,
like if you listen back to it, it's like
and
there's
I
a lot
have
of
video of it, which is really fun.
Yeah, but it never was as like the jokes, the laughter wasn't as loud as you thought it was. But in your head, you're like, "Oh my god, they love this," and then you come back with like you modify it. You change your delivery, you come back with a whole new thing. Doesn't go nowhere near as good as the first one. You're like, I hate everybody. Yeah. Like, I hate life. I love this song so much, to be honest with you.
Is it one of your favorites?
It is one of my favorite Jack White songs. Okay, I love Jack White. I've got a hoodie.
Yeah, that's
we've
a
got
big
tickets
statement.
for the concert coming up.
Is he coming to St. Louis?
Yeah, he is.
Nice.
The factory and sometime. I already bought the ticket. I don't know when the date is.
Yeah.
It's a reminder on my phone.
A true fan.
Yeah, true fan who knows exactly when he's going to be here. I think April or something like that. Anyway, you have I love stories. I do.
Yeah.
And I love stories of as long as they're well told.
Right.
This is so well told. It's so ridiculous. It just beginning to end. It's a junk house in South Carolina. You have the little boy who's 10. We'll get to him in a minute. But really, the story is about the older son.
Oh, yeah.
He comes home. He sees, his stepdad, whatever he's calling this guy, the boyfriend. He doesn't call him stepdad. He just calls him boyfriend. And he's just beating the crap out of this priest. But the second he sees the priest, he said, "That must be my daddy."
When you know, you know.
When you know, right? Like red hair. Maybe they were red hair.
Yeah.
I always kind of when I picture this, I picture two redheads.
Really?
I
think
do.
Jack would have told us that.
Well, maybe, but maybe not. But something was an identifier, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it had to have been something where he looked right at this guy and said, "That's my dad." And his boyfriend is just you're beating up a priest.
Right.
And you don't assume, priests can't fight.
I know some priests that should be beat up, so.
I'm sure you do. It's okay. But he's just like, I've got to do something about this. And he grabs a milk bottle and he kills the boyfriend. He knocks him upside the head.
That's one of my favorite things is the blood and milk.
Yeah. And, he said he delivered every morning at 9. He's like, he looked dead in his eyes, and he's just like, man, yeah. He's like, and the milk went down with the blood.
Good.
Yeah,
so good.
And then then they find like all hell's breaking loose, and he's just like, hey, why is he here? And he's like, oh, well, he's the reason why we have this, and there's money in the house, so I guess the boyfriend must have stumbled across the money, led to a whole fight. Somehow the priest gets called over, and then it just, oh man, it's so great. But then it gets even crazier. So, the boyfriend fell down good for you. So it's on the second page there, right in the middle. It's like, he's like, why'd you have to come back here? He's like, he doesn't even know this guy, and now he's calling him daddy.
Yeah.
It's so, oh man, there's so much here. And then, he's like, okay, well, we're going to bury you. We're going to go to Tennessee.
Yeah.
But then the little boy comes in. And he's got a bottle of gin, and he's holding the milkman's hat.
And then I love a good la la la.
Right, yeah. And then there's
I love a la la la.
And he's and he's like, okay, you've heard, you want to know how it ends? He's like, I can't tell you. You got to go talk to the milkman. And it's just like, what a guy's green earth this. So you'd assume that the milkman is delivering more than milk. Right. Is my assumption. Yeah. And then that's his kid.
Right.
And maybe the boyfriend, is, I'll use the phrase shooting blanks. I think that's an appropriate one here, right? Kind of seems like.
Yeah.
She's got two kids.
If they're doing it.
If they are, who knows, We're making a lot of assumptions on behalf of this family, which is fine. That's what you do about a good story, though, right? Like, fan fiction.
Add to it.
People love fan fiction.
Yeah.
They love
You should write fan fiction
me
about
personally
Jack White's
about just this song particularly. After that, I'm out. I'm not. Most of the time, when people they try and ship things. That's the thing. That's the phrase they use. I'm too old to be using that word. Honestly, talking about words. Yes. If I'm talking about anybody being shipped, but they'd be like, oh, from Star Wars, it was like Finn, and then I can't think of the pilot, but it was Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
From the sequels.
Right.
They were like, these two should be together. And it's like, do they have to be together? They don't have to.
I know. I do not understand the world of fan fiction.
I don't either. But this is really not fan fiction. I think it's there. I think it's very implied that the younger kid is the milkman's kid.
Yeah.
Or did you get that vibe?
I did, for sure.
Yeah. I like how you're just studying this.
But also is like... So when they say put daddy in the truck,
they're taking the priest and they're going to Tennessee.
The priest is going with them.
Yeah, they're all getting out of Dodge with whatever money that they have that she's been saving up this entire time. They're going to bury him in the backyard. The boyfriend's getting buried, and no one will miss him. That's the weird thing. Like they will just be in Tennessee.
And his blue tattoos.
Such a description.
Yeah. My paternal grandfather had like a blue navy like back when it was just blue ink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back when you had like if you had a tattoo, that was like
Yeah.
you were that
Because of the navy.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine whose cousin gave him a tattoo. He had like 2 letters on his arm, and it was just like JC or something. Like, and it was just like they got bored one day, and they did it with like an actual
Poke
like
and stick.
yeah,
Stick and poke,
yeah,
poke
like
and
a
stick.
like a
Yeah,
knitting
prison
needle.
tattoo.
Yeah, like an actual needle. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically a prison tattoo.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the worst looking.
Yeah.
It never looks good. It's not.
Kelsey, my best friend, Kelsey Quinlan, she actually has given herself like poke and stick tattoos.
Yeah.
Herself. And I'm like, I don't think I can do that.
I know I could. I don't have any tattoos. You do. You have several.
I do. Yeah.
And I don't have any. I just don't. I don't think I can do it.
Yeah, I can handle someone, like I can't even tweeze my own eyebrows. Like I have to have it waxed because I can't do it to myself. So.
And I don't see the point of getting them now. It's like, for me personally, it's like.
Yeah, I mean.
Like if I showed up with like a sleeve now, people would just be like, "What? Okay. Like, do you have a Corvette too? Like, what's going on here?"
If there's not anything that you're passionate enough about having on your body for forever, like I didn't get my first one until I was 32, I think.
I think that's an appropriate age to start if you want to.
Because I just and I went through a lot of ideas too.
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, I was like, Mom and Dad, why won't you let me get a tattoo? And I wanted a tramp stamp. Is that okay to say? I don't.
Yeah, you can call it that. I mean, what else would it? A tattoo in your lower back. We come up with words and phrases to represent ideas.
I feel like that's probably not. I don't know.
Like you're offending the tramps that have the stamps. Yeah, like what? Do you, like, I don't think they're offended.
Is tramp an okay word to use anymore?
Was it ever an okay word? I mean, we just gave it to them. Like these young girls who just enjoyed having fun and wanted a back tattoo. We just called them tramps.
Someone with a tramp stamp, please let me know. Contact me and let me know if it's okay to say it. But I wanted one that was literally a lamb, the Lamb of God, like holding a cross.
I wish to God.
I wanted a Lamb of God lower back tattoo.
And they were on board with that because you think
Well, so my ex-husband and I, we got married when we were 21, and in undergrad I got my nose pierced and he got his lip pierced, and everyone was more upset about my nose piercing than his lip piercing, because it was like a woman with a nose ring.
Yeah, I mean, one's more offensive than the other, though, and it's not the nose ring.
It's not the nose ring.
No, not to say that either one of them are offensive, but like of things that I don't want to see, a guy with a lip ring, I'm good.
Oh, but he was like a worship pastor,
right? Because he had the
checkered Vans.
God, it all ties back to the Vans.
It does. Yeah. I have no idea how we got to my nose ring.
Because we were talking tattoos, and we were talking about the blue tattoos.
Yeah. Because
again, this is one of the most descriptive, well-written stories. Maybe not the best song in the world. I love this song, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I love a story song.
And it just hits close. You know, it doesn't hit close to home. Like I can't relate to these people. Like I've never, never dated a pastor.
I think that's so important. Like whether it's whatever media we're consuming, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's comedy or books or music, like anything that gives us perspective and insight into how other people live, like I think that's one of the most valuable things.
And I think your song does that really well, honestly. I mean, like I said, it's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
I love, I was like on board the second. And, well, I wasn't. I was. I read the song title.
The name is going to give people some feelings.
But I was like listening to it, and I could have written down. I was like, this is going to be a beautiful song that's going to piss me off. Just seeing the song title name, and I was like, okay, this is going to piss me. And it did. It didn't piss me off. It didn't I'm not mad about it. It was just kind of like, I was like, like I said, I don't like the idea of humanizing just evil. And I just believe your Jeffrey Dahmers, your John Wayne Gacy. Do you have a personal favorite serial killer?
No. I will say, like, I haven't been into the true crime thing at all, because for a long time I was like, my life is stressful enough. Why would I do this? Like,
Yeah.
I also couldn't watch, like, just intense TV or anything, right? And so recently I did watch the Menendez brothers, the one that had Chloe Sevigny and Javier Bardem. And what was so interesting about that is I think, like 6 or 7, like when that happened. And the only thing I remembered is my mom used it to be like, look at those disrespectful boys that killed their parents. She was like, if you're Meredith, do you want to be disrespectful? Like, that's what
I don't want to be that disrespectful. I mean, I want to get some points across.
Yeah, it was that. And then often, like, you never know when Jesus is going to come back. Do you want to be disrespectful right now? What if you're being disrespectful when Jesus comes back?
I think I'm going to say this, and I've said it. I want to build I'm pretty sure I could build like an entire set around it. I just haven't, but I'm going to take credit for it now. But I think the infinite depression of man in general. Here's this is how crazy I'm going to go. Is the fact that you want to believe that you're in a time that's important, and you're just not.
No.
Like you're like people want to believe that they're going to be here when Jesus returns, and the odds are just sheerly against it. It's like an entire generation of people lived and died and never saw the Cubs win the World Series.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like the same
Harry
thing.
Carey did not.
No, he didn't. But you know those kind of things, like you talk about like the return of God, or you talk about like or the zombie apocalypse that we all want to have. Like we're never we're not getting that. No. You know, like we had an election. A lot of people aren't happy with the results.
Right.
But the world's going to keep spinning, and things are going to keep going. And like we'll have an election in 4 years. People, they were like, no more elections. And if I'm wrong about this, I'll be the first to tell you. I was like, wow,
back to this. That's what everyone will be doing.
He really did cancel elections. Like, man, those I'll be impressed. But anyway, my point is that like we keep wanting to like have like some.
Oh, we all want to be so self-important and so the individualism is awful. Like I do think that is what is destroying.
Well, I mean, we're all individuals.
Society.
I mean, maybe more main character syndrome than being an individual.
Yeah, but just like this idea that like it only matters if I survive. Like even if
I can see that, yeah.
Like if I survive and if my like family survives,
as long as I get what I need,
over
anybody else.
That's why we have. I think that's why we have billionaires. Like that idea of I deserve to survive more than my fellow man.
Yeah, I think billionaires are an accident of the Industrial Revolution. And we had them before. They were just called kings,
Right, yes.
But it's like you came up with an idea that's so cost effective that everyone chips in like $1.
Yeah.
And then after if a million people chip in or so on and so forth, and then all of a sudden it's $2, and now I don't think anybody no one. I know people say to be billionaires, they usually don't get there, but it's like the accidental it's just like you invented Facebook. Mm-hmm. And you didn't count on it being what it ended up being, and it's just like, oh, I can't stop making money if I tried.
Yeah. But
like
you could
Amazon.
give it away.
Well, that's on them. I mean,
there's no ethical billionaires. Didn't mean to make it political, but I have a bit of a problem with that.
Yeah, that's what people do here at Gimme A Song. Like, not a lot of libertarian or conservative comedians, like.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends. There's definitely differing viewpoints across the.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Across the scene.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love that. Like, I love getting to travel, and my material, I don't think it's political because I'm talking about my experience.
Yeah.
And it may deal with political issues, but I I love so much when like an audience in a small town that's supposed to be like against me, and they aren't, because they realize that it's me telling my story.
It's more relatable than people want to believe.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to, like, I have a friend of mine who just is convinced that everyone outside of Missouri is just like these, or outside of St. Louis specifically, because St. Louis is a blue city, and then outside of it, it's just like,
it's an interesting,
everyone outside of it thinks nothing like him. And I'm like, well, no, they don't. They probably don't think exactly like you, but, whatever. We talked about 2 good songs.
Yes.
I think, well, I'm on the fence about your song, to be honest. It's a good song.
Say that
it is a well-constructed,
objectively, it is.
Yes, it's a very pretty song.
Yeah.
The morale, I didn't realize this, that like, I didn't know I brought my morals to music, but I guess I do. Oh, well, I know you do, but it's like... Hey, everybody. It's me and Sniper Cat. Just wanted to record the ending for the Gimme A Song episode with Meredith Hopping. Unfortunately, we ran out of space or something. I don't know. I thought I had plenty of space on the iPad, and it does the recording, and I didn't, or something. Listen, I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate you checking out the show and listening every week. And we make mistakes because we're new, we're getting started at this, we're learning how to do it. It's not an overnight process, ladies and gentlemen. I thought it might be, it isn't. So anyway, I had a great time talking to Meredith about her weird song and talking to her about one of my favorite songs. You can reach Meredith Hopping at Meredith Hopping on Instagram, MERDITH, Hopping, HOPPING, no S, no spaces. Really just want to thank you all. We got one more episode next week, and then we're going to take a Christmas break. On behalf of myself and Sniper Cat, everyone, America's favorite cat, who's not looking into the camera, we just want to say thank you for checking it out, listening, everything else. I'm at Jeffrey Phipps, JEFFERY_Phipps, PHIPPS, on the gram, on Facebook, that's it. And the show, I mean, you're already watching it, but you know the links. But anyway, if you want to share it with your friends, it's at Linktree, linktr.ee/GIMME a song. Give me a song on Linktree. We're also on YouTube. If you don't watch it there, we're on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you get your good podcast. And again, thank you so much for checking it out. If you like the show, tell your pets. So Sniper Cat, I have a podcast and you should watch it, and tell your friends, share the information. If you're enjoying the podcast, share it with your friends, let them know, hey, I'm watching this podcast. I'm listening to this podcast. You got to check this guy out. He's talking to people about songs that mean something to them, and tell them. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
So there's no ethical billionaires, but I got to dance around behind the couch to Nights in White Satin.
I can assure you I will never listen to it again. And it was like, oh, you can spend the night, but guess where you're going Sunday? And it's like, oh, man, I'm going to church. And
yeah.